unto us, in Jesus' name. Chapter 22. It is still December 16th, 7:30 p.m. Monday evening, Los Angeles General Hospital, Los Angeles, California. JoJo got to the waiting room and stood off to the side to place a call. However, before he could do so, he received a text. Hello, this is Raylan Quinn. I hope I'm not bothering you, but I was wondering if you know anything about the case, or if you know how I can find out anything about the case. He texted back, Hi, Raylan. You're not bothering me at all. I was just about to call you because I just got back to the hospital to check on you and your sister. Oh, you're here? Yes, in emergency waiting room. They moved her to a room. I'll come get you. Good, I'll see you in a few. It took her only a few minutes to find him. She didn't come through the emergency room doors, but from down the corridor to the left. She smiled as she approached him. He smiled and nodded, and again he was struck by her beauty. She wasn't glamorous, which he liked. It was totally natural. She didn't appear to be wearing any makeup, and her long black hair was simply in a ponytail at the nape of her neck. She still wore her pink scrubs, which meant she hadn't been home. Hello, he said. Hi, thanks so much for coming. No big deal. I just felt like I needed to check on you. You've been here all day? He asked. She nodded, yes. Have you eaten? No. He held up the bag in his left hand. I brought you some dinner. Her eyes opened wide. You did? Why? He shrugged. Well, I figured you hadn't eaten and you need nourishment, and this is food from a restaurant called Nature's Table. It's really good stuff. Oh, okay, well, thank you. Let's go up to the room. I don't want to leave Cali for very long. They started down the corridor. How's she doing? JoJo asked. Well, the doctor says she looks worse than she is. Her face is all bruised and swollen, and she's in pain. But he says that she can go home tomorrow, but she can't do any physical activity for a few days. They went to an elevator and to the third floor and headed to the room. He entered quietly. He sat the bag down on a reclining chair and went to the bed and look her over. She looked bad, black and blue and swollen. Raylan looked over the side of the bed and touched her sister's face very gently and lovingly. Kaylee, look who's come to see you. Kaylee squinted her eyes open and offered what must have been a smile. Hello, Kaylee. How you feeling? JoJo said. Not so good, she said softly. I'm so sorry. It'll get better. Hope so, she said, and then closed her eyes again. He placed his left hand on the top of her head, closed his eyes, and offered a quick prayer. He opened his eyes and smiled at Raylan, who was looking at him. So, Ray, please sit down and eat your food. She nodded, picked up the bag, sat down, and peered inside. She pulled out a paper-wrapped burger, peeled back the paper, and took a bite. Her eyes opened wide. Wow, I think that might be the best burger I've ever eaten. He smiled. It's one of my favorite places to eat. Healthy food that actually tastes good. Look in the bag and you'll see an insulated cup. That is raw milk smoothie for your sister from my mom. It's really good to help her body recover. It has all kinds of things in it. It's what my aunt prescribes for anyone with a traumatic injury. Oh, and I'm supposed to ask if she has any allergies. No allergies, Raylan said. Good. And there's a plastic spoon in there, too, because my mom thought she might not be able to put the cup to her lips or to suck on a straw, so she can use the spoon. The smoothie is thick, like ice cream anyway, so it'd be better to spoon it up. Oh, that's very kind of your mother and also very thoughtful. He shrugged. Well, she knows how it feels to have her face all bashed in. Raylan looked up in surprise. JoJo shrugged. Before my mother married my father, she was in an abusive marriage. Raylan nodded her head. Oh, I see. I'm sorry. Oh, it's all good now because they are happily married. Sorry. So, not meaning to be too personal, but which one is your biological parent? He smiled. My father. My biological mother passed away from brain cancer right after I was born. Oh, I'm so sorry. He shrugged again. I mean, I didn't know her, so it's not painful to me. She nodded and finished her hamburger, and then immediately stood to feed the smoothie to her sister. Kaylee, JoJo brought you a treat. Here, let's see how you like it. She held the spoon to her lips, and Kaylee accepted it. She licked her lips. That is good. It's so cool and creamy and sweet. JoJo smiled. That's right, there. That right there is a breakfast of champions. Both girls smiled at that. So, Raylin, JoJo began, let me ask you a question. When I called you for your sister and you thought I was playing a joke on you, I mean, why? Explain to me why you thought it was a prank. JoJo watched as her face turned pink. Raylin smiled. Well, it was sort of a joke between my sister and I told her if she ever sees JoJo Adams walking around campus, then she needs to get your autograph for me. Oh, so you know who I am? Of course. Doesn't everybody? He shook his head. She explained, I went to school at USC for the past 3 years. I got my degree this past summer. I love football, but I can't afford to go to the games, but I was able to watch some practices, and I've had my eye on you since you were a freshman. I watched all the games on TV. Okay, well, I'm flattered. She looked down, obviously embarrassed. Well, you were in one of my math classes once, but I was too shy to speak to you. But Katie said she wasn't shy at all, and if she ever sees you, she's going to get your autograph for me. So it became a joke, and I asked her every day if she got the autograph. She shrugged, but she never did see you. Or actually, she did a few times, but she couldn't get to you fast enough. I guess it seems kind of stupid. No, it doesn't, he said quickly. Really, I am flattered and humbled. But you probably know then that my football days are done. She glanced at his arm in a sling. I heard that. So that means that my autograph doesn't mean anything anymore. Well, that's not true. I mean, it means a lot to me. He smiled at her. She was a sweetheart. Raylan concentrated on feeding her sister for a few minutes. So, did you want to hear about the case? JoJo asked. Oh, yes. Do you know about it? I know some. He went on to tell her all that his father had told him. She and her sister both gasped when he told them about Scott's priors. When he was finished, they both were also very afraid. What if he gets out and comes after me again? Kaylee whispered. Well, first, my father's been in touch with the DA and is trying to make it so that he won't be able to post bail. Raylan nodded. How is he able to do that? Well, my father's an attorney, a big-time attorney, with the Lee and Adams firm. He has a lot of pull. But also, if that doesn't work, we'll make sure your sister and you two are protected. Aunt Angel says she spoke with you briefly. Yes, but we really didn't get to speak much because the doctor came in to talk to me at the same time that she called. Yeah, she told me that too. She said she'll be in touch with you soon to let you know the best way to handle this. I think she'll find a new place for you to stay since he knows where you live. But all of that depends on if he's able to post bail. She nodded. We don't have a lot of money to, pay for a place to live. We have Katie's allowance from her student loan and my income, so it has to be within a certain range. She cast her eyes down in either humility or shame or embarrassment, and he didn't want her to feel any of those things. He smiled in understanding. Well, expense will not be a problem, so please don't worry about that kind of thing. The Angel Foundation will take care of it all. Raylan sighed and nodded. So you called her Aunt Angel a minute ago. You're related? Oh, not by blood, but I've known her and her husband since I was a baby, or they've known me. And my father knew them since he was 8 years old, and Aunt Angel is my grandmother's best friend, and our families are really close, so she's always been Aunt Angel, and he's been Uncle Jason. Okay, that's cool. Well, they are some of the best people I know. You have a very interesting family. What did you say earlier? They're just people? She smiled. They sat silently for a few minutes. He decided he better not overstay his welcome. He just opened his mouth to say goodbye when she spoke. So, did you actually have surgery on your shoulder? Yes, it was a grade 6 shoulder separation. How long ago was the surgery? 1 week ago, exactly. So it will be at least another week before the sling comes off and you start with pendulum-type exercises. He nodded. Actually, my aunt said I'm healing fast, and when I hit the 10-day mark, I can start on pendulum exercises. Raylan nodded. Good. So when you say your aunt, this time you're talking about Dr. Kino? Yes, well, Dr. Kino Wallace. She's married. So you really are related to the Kinos, right? Yes. My father's mother is married to Grandmaster Kino. And my father's sister is Brianna Adams, and she's married to Ricky Kino. And Eric Kino III, he's your cousin, right? Yes. Interesting. Yeah, and it gets complicated. She smiled. He nodded. Well, Miss Raylan Quinn, I guess I'll be heading out. Can I get anything for you? Do anything for you? Oh, I think you've done quite enough. Thank you so much for saving my sister today. I can't thank you enough. It was no big deal. I'm just glad I was there. Well, the news made it out to be a big deal. He shrugged. You know they tend to exaggerate. The video didn't exaggerate. You took down a big guy without even using your hands. He smiled. I landed that kick precisely. That doesn't always happen. Thank goodness it did today. I'm not buying it. It wasn't just a lucky shot. You have skills. He nodded. I have some. So speaking of your skills, do you know what you're going to do if you don't play football? Well, there's no question I will not be able to play football. Not professionally, anyway. Though I could coach, but I have other skills besides football and martial arts. You have my curiosity piqued. He smiled. Well, I'm developing other skills. One of them is to minister. Like at a church? Yes. Right now I've been helping out a church that doesn't have a youth program. So the reverend of the church has made me like an honorary youth minister. I gave my first sermon last Sunday. Oh, that is amazing. How did it go? How did you do? It went great. I think I did okay. It was enormously rewarding, and I'm doing it again this next Sunday. I would love to come. You would? That would be great. So you're a Christian? I am. Cali, too, though we haven't been very active lately. In Quapaw, there is a Methodist church on one end of the street where we live, and a Baptist church on the other end, and two different community churches like non-denominational churches between them. In our little town, church is a big deal, so it would be nice to go to church. Where's the church that you're going to preach at? It's Hopewood Chapel Church of Christ in Huntington Beach. There's a website, hopewoodchapel.com. Thanks, JoJo. I'll check it out. He nodded. I hope to see you both. Anyway, if you need anything, please call. I will. I mean, people always say that, and then they never do. Anything at all, call me. She smiled. I promise, if I need anything. Thank you, JoJo. He nodded. Okay, well, bye for now. He looked at Kaylee. Bye, Kaylee. Get better. Bye, she said softly, and thanks again. He nodded and smiled at Raylene. Okay, so, bye. She nodded. Bye, JoJo. He turned and left, shaking his head at himself. Could he be any more awkward? He felt like he'd just thrown a frozen rope and it bounced off the numbers. New scene. It is December 17th, Tuesday, mid-morning, Redwood Hills Medical Center, Los Angeles, California. Melody Keith looked up and smiled as her mother and brother walked into the room. Hey, you guys, she said cheerfully. Hello, sweetheart, Carol said. Hey, Mel, Philip said. Aren't you supposed to be at school? Yes, but it's not a big deal. I'm done with exams. Tomorrow is the last day before Christmas vacation, and we aren't doing anything. What about Lyle? He has 2 exams, Philip said. Sucks for him, he chuckled. Mel smiled. So you're all checked out, sweetie, Carol said. We're just waiting for the wheelchair. Melody sighed. Logan had left early, around 6 a.m., and she felt very lonely without him. He said he had an early class and some other business he had to attend to. Certainly she was mature enough to not have him by her side at all times. Maybe it was the trauma of yesterday's events, but she felt like she needed his strong presence. Philip approached her and leaned down. Do you like my new hat? She looked closely at it. It was a green knit hat with a white pom-pom at the top and the words Miracle of Christmas in red along the edge, decorated with red knit holly berries. Aw, actually, I really do. It's really cute. Philip smiled. Cool. He held out a small gift bag. Because I got one for you. Philip, Melody said, that is so sweet. She pulled the hat out of the bag and looked it over. I figure we have matching head wounds. We should have matching hats. Melody giggled. You always act so tough. You're just a big softy, aren't you? He snorted. Yeah, you got me all figured out, sis. So put it on. She did. How do I look? He smiled. Almost as good as me. Melody and Carol giggled. Okay, I bet you're ready to go home, a tech said kindly as she entered the room with the wheelchair. Melody obediently shifted from the bed to the wheelchair. Her mother gathered her personal belongings, and they were off, headed to freedom. As they got to the loading zone just outside the sliding glass doors, Melody saw a group of people, and she started to laugh. Logan and JoJo and young Eric and Jordan and Mr. Davis and Agent Brown and Bristol all stood there, and they were all wearing the same hat as her. Carol was videoing, and they all cheered for Melody as she approached. Before she could even get out of the chair, though, some people rushed up with large cameras. Melody, Melody, how are you feeling? The reporters were suddenly blocked by 4 Ameritech agents. And while the agents held the reporters back, Melody rose from the wheelchair and took a minute to hug and thank each person who'd come to greet her wearing the silly hat. Bristol, is your grandma okay? Yes, she's fine. Good. And are you okay? I am now. Thank you so much, Mel. And I'm so sorry you got hurt. Well, I'm glad it was me and not you. Melody turned to Agent Brown. Thank you, Agent Brown. Thank you so much for saving me. Well, it's my job, so no need for thanks. I'm glad you're okay. She hugged the agent and turned to Mr. Davis. Sir, thank you so much. I know you were in charge of the investigation. I can't thank you enough. Well, it wasn't just me, but you're welcome. We're happy with the outcome. She turned to JoJo and hugged him. I saw you on TV this morning. You are so cool. He laughed. Yeah, that's what they all say. She giggled. Thanks for coming. To see my brother's girl, it's the least I can do. I'm glad you're okay, Mel. He leaned down and kissed her cheek. Melody turned and put her arms around both young Eric and Jordan at the same time. Hey, you two. Thanks for being here. Mel, you're like my sister, Jordan said. How could I not be here for you? Young Eric squeezed her. Mel, you know, you're like family, right? Of course we're here. My mom and dad would be here too, and grandma and granddad, but they felt it would be too much for you, and Taylor had to go to school and is really mad that she couldn't be here, but their hearts are here. Oh, thank you all so much, she said to everyone. She looked over at a reporter speaking into a microphone. Melody, Melody, she called, would you like to say anything about your experience yesterday? Surprisingly, she nodded. Yes. First and foremost, I'd like to publicly thank my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. I'd also like to give a huge thanks to Ameritech for handling everything so well, and also to the Huntington Police Department for working together with Ameritech so well and protecting me and the Palmas and the whole community. Were you scared? Another reporter yelled out. Yes, I was a big chicken. Everyone laughed at her words. Melody, is it true that you work for the Kinos? Another asked. Yes, it's true. How is it working for the Kinos? She smiled sweetly. It's the best. They are the best people in the world. Their whole family. I love them and they love me and they treat me like a member of their family. They are so kind. Melody, another reporter called. Okay, well, I'm sorry, but I'm really tired and I need to go. Thank you. Logan opened the door of his vehicle and she scooted inside. He reached in and secured her seatbelt for her. As Logan went around to get in the car, Carol leaned in to speak with Melody. Logan wanted to drive you home. I'll see you there. Oh, Mom, I'm sorry. I hope you don't feel left out. Carol smiled. No, sweetie. I feel happy that you found a boy who was so good to you. You can't stay my little baby girl forever. I know that. Mom, I'm only 18. I'm still your baby girl. Carol smiled and kissed her cheek. I'll see you at home. Melody smiled. Logan pulled away from the curb. She looked over at him. He smiled at her and held out his hand, and she placed her hand in his, and he squeezed it. I'm happy to see you, she said softly. And I'm happy to see you, he said. I'm proud of you for what you just did. I mean, talk to those reporters like you are a pro, and thanking Jesus first. She grinned. Oh, I've learned from the best by watching you and your family. He squeezed her hand. And you're still your mom's baby girl? He asked. She giggled. I'm different things to different people. He smiled. You're very smart, Melody, and a little bit of a player. She laughed. Again, I've learned from the best. New scene. The rest of the week was attended to at a fast pace for both the West Coast families and the East Coast families. There was so much to do before Sunday, the last Sunday before Christmas. There was even more to do before Christmas Eve on the following Tuesday, just 1 week from the day Melody got out of the hospital. Across the country in Pine Forest, Georgia, the Gabe Tanner Community Center was in full swing. Care packages for soldiers were being sent out. Angel tree requests were being worked on. A Christmas dance would be held in the gym on Friday. Feeding of the less fortunate was being offered. Christmas activities were offered. Crafts were being made and sold all over the area, in parts of town, in churches and schools. At the center, marshmallows were being roasted. Hot chocolate was being served. The Christmas story was being taught, and acts of kindness abounded. Add to that, personal lives were changing. Heather and Nolan were busy fixing up their new home, which wasn't new at all. 13-year-old Hannah Brown was overcoming trauma and learning to act and think like a regular little girl. She loved taking care of puppies with Charlie and learning to cook in the kitchen of the inn with Lily Tanner. She was beginning to love Miss Jody, and she felt very much at home around Mr. John. She loved taking care of babies, the Stewart twins and the Tanner twins. She FaceTimed with Taylor often and spent a lot of time with Gabe, Charlie, and Matt as they went around helping people in the community with various undertakings. Violet and CJ and Rose and Jericho also spent a lot of time together. Jericho was getting up out of the wheelchair and on his crutches and getting around and feeling much better. He was working very hard on getting his business stabilized so that he wouldn't have to travel and could stick around Pine Forest, buy or build a home, and be close to his girl. Unfortunately, Lena had barely heard from Jake at all since he'd returned to Kabul after he'd recovered from his injuries. She was doing her best to keep her head up by helping out at the center or the inn whenever possible, and of course helping her mom with the babies. Gabe was happy to see Dalton with Mrs. Murphy and Lucas at most every event. He was also happy that Peyton would be home by the end of the week. He intended to spend a lot of time with his friend. The Tanners were busy and their giant family. The Tanners were busy with their giant family. Lizzie had been asked to sing at several events and church programs, and she graciously accepted. Keegan's parents were coming down to spend Christmas with them this year. They usually took turns between Keegan and his two sisters, and this year they were supposed to spend with his older sister, but they wanted to spend Christmas with their new grandbabies. Up in Nashville, Toby and Caroline and Gracie and Brody were getting ready to enjoy an old-fashioned country Christmas at the farm. The Smiths and the Stillwaters and a few other friends and neighbors would be joining them for Christmas dinner. They would, of course, have a giant sing-along, and the day after Christmas, Brody was very much looking forward to heading down to Pine Forest to see Daisy. He'd kissed her before he'd left town. He'd felt it to his toes. They hadn't been able to talk much because Daisy was so busy, and he hoped her feelings hadn't cooled too much, or worse, that she'd met someone else. On the West Coast, they were working at a feverish speed. The Kinos were making sure everyone who lived in the apartments next door to the church had what they needed to celebrate Christmas. The Garcias had been a tremendous help with that. Each family with children was given a $500 gift card per child. Each person over the age of 15 was offered a personal financial counseling session with one of the Kinos. Many of them had scoffed at the offer of a financial counseling session. "Just give us some money," some of them said. But Leonard Garcia set them straight. He said, "The Kinos are not going to simply give their money away. They want to make a difference and not just put a Band-Aid on our problems. And if you don't take a man worth billions of dollars up on financial counseling session, then you deserve to be broke. As for me, I wouldn't pass up this opportunity." They began on the sessions. Also, young Eric and his father both had personal appearances to make on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday to promote the movie, which was premiering on Friday nationwide. Logan was holding rehearsals on Tuesday and Wednesday evenings for the new choir. Over 20 people had signed up online for the regular adult choir and more than 10 for the children's special Christmas choir. Also signing up was Zeke Dolan, the high school percussionist, and another young guy, Sal Mendez, who played guitar and keyboard. Logan was looking forward to seeing how they would do and what would help them if they needed help. Let me read that sentence again. Logan was looking forward to seeing what they could do and would help them if they needed help. It was going to be a throw everything together quickly type of rehearsal for the Sunday Christmas program, and everyone was going to have to go with the flow. It would be a good lesson for them all. He was happy, too, that Melody had signed up to sing in the choir. She said she wasn't a soloist, but she could carry a tune. Of course, he already knew that. She said her injury would not keep her from singing. Logan was just happy that they would be working together on any musical project for the Hopewood Chapel Church of Christ. Meanwhile, Grandmaster Kino checked in with Jason and Justin Lee to see how their special gift to Ronnie was going. He would like it to be ready by the end of day Sunday, since Ronnie was coming to Sunday dinner and he would present it to him then. All of the West Coast families, the Kinos, Adams, Lees, Davises, Keiths, Brooks, and Alec and Desi Morgan, were going out for a few hours each day to either deliver backpacks to the homeless or to help out at the shelters. The packs were purchased and being filled with food, Bibles, clothing, blankets, towels, and money. They also had tents to hand out, and the shelters were in need of food and gifts for children. There was not a shortage of things to do and people to help. The new South Los Angeles branch of the Gabe Tanner Community Center in Compton was working on doing a scaled-down version of feeding the 5,000 by feeding at least 1,000 on Christmas Day. They had been in touch with Rose Tanner so that she could coach them through the process. The Kinos, and especially Taylor, had been asked to drop by, if only for a few minutes, to encourage the volunteers. Another good thing happening was Agent Wyatt, having felt prompted to do something about the kids down in Hillcrest, in Jordan's neighborhood, had recently seen to the purchase of 2 empty homes and lots that were adjacent to each other. They were being purchased by the Gabe Tanner Foundation and would be turned into another community center. There was also news that 4 more Gabe Tanner community centers were opening across the country, and one in Australia. It seemed big things were happening. On Wednesday morning, Bree and Ricky went inside the school with Omari and Brittany instead of dropping them off, and brought with them a slew of goodies. Bree got Jewel Brooks involved, and they ended up filling 2 long special tables in the cafeteria for the entire school to munch on all day. They were thanked profusely, but Bree assured them it was her who was having so much fun. Breeze Adams was very excited that the new stained glass window will be installed by Friday afternoon. It was going to make a huge difference in how the church looks as one approaches it, and also in the amount of light in the vestibule area. On Thursday evening, at the home of Joey and Breeze Adams, the family, plus Emily, Logan, and Melody, gathered together to try again to have a little birthday party for Kelston, who, like her cousin Emily, had turned 4. She wanted Melody to be at her birthday dinner because Melody had been at Emily's birthday breakfast, and she had to wait for Melody to feel better after her assault. Mark, Bella, and JoJo had also been invited but couldn't attend. Mark was working on several time-sensitive cases and overseeing the work on several others. Bella had been asked to help Mrs. Paula Garcia interview the women and teen girls in the apartments and assess their needs, though really it was to assess their lives and situations. And JoJo was working on 2 things, though he didn't really think of it as work. One was working with Reverend Clark on preparing the Christmas sermons to be presented on Sunday. And the second, he had to recruit some participants for the said program. New scene. It is December 19th, Thursday morning, Kino Estate, Crystal Cove, California. Eric and Shelley rose from their knees after their morning prayer. The children were still sleeping, but that wouldn't last much longer. As they went out into the hall to head downstairs, Cam was coming out of the bedroom he shared with Jeffy and their son Eli. "Good morning, Grandmaster Kino, Mom," Cam said. "Good morning, sweetie," Shelley chirped. "Early assignment?" Eric asked. Cam nodded. "Yes, sir. And you're about to know about it in a few." Eric sighed. "Is it someone in our family?" Cam didn't answer because Eric's phone went off. He smiled as he answered and put it on speaker. "Good morning, Jason Lee." "Good morning, Eric. Let's keep it that way. Not sure if you realize what's happening right now, but I'd like to keep an agent on you for a little while until it dies down." "Until what dies down?" "The storm brewing over the Cedric May podcast that aired last night. First, it has over 60 million views already, and it's growing. Second, the comments are pouring in. On YouTube alone, over 20,000 comments. That doesn't include Spotify and other platforms. Most of the comments are actually positive, and the ones that are negative are being defended by your fan base. Eric gave a short grunt over the term of fan base. However, there have been threats made, challenges issued, a whole lot of posturing, and a whole lot of ugliness. I just like to keep someone on you for a while until it dies down, and since I know you don't want your privacy invaded, I've assigned your son-in-law to be your bodyguard. I understand your sentiment, Jason, but I hardly think this rates one of your senior jets. Jason sighed, though he expected the resistance. Well, let's think about this a moment, Eric. You have a lot to do over the next few days, places to be. Let's say a group of female protesters try to impede your progress. Will you let them stop you from getting to your destination? Will you allow them near your wife or kids? Do you want to have to raise a hand to anyone? And as you know, they have no problem doing this. Just look at the climate protesters or the ridiculous Palestine protesters. Will you shove them out of your way? With Cam there, he can take care of that kind of thing and you can protect your family. As a matter of fact, now that I think about it, I'm going to add one more guy to the mix. I'm not sure who yet. I'll have to check with Joey and Jeff. And I want to keep Agent Ward with Taylor. Eric sighed. It's amazing, isn't it, that a man can't state his opinion without those who disagree with him trying to hurt him or his family? It is a shame, but that's what's become of our nation, with the radicals who don't think you should be able to state your opinion. Satan is hard at work, but he will not prevail, Eric said. Well, we will not cower, and we will not be deterred. We will continue to occupy and to teach truth until Jesus comes. I'm not afraid, but you do what you feel you have to do, Jace. However, I will pay you for your services. Period. No discussion on that. Whatever, Grandmaster Kino. Also, I've counseled with my brother, and he says for you to make a public statement about how you intend to handle any threat to your person or your family. Justice will be swift. Anyone coming as a threat toward you or a member of your family will be dealt with swiftly and will be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. He and I also decided that we will notify the police departments in Newport, Huntington Beach, Los Angeles, and possibly Hillcrest to make sure it is understood that threats have been made and you will defend yourself and your family. Eric smiled. Thank you, Jason. And tell Justin I appreciate his input. Well, also Ricky. Mark and Joey have been in on this powwow. Eric nodded. Of course. So I'll get back to you when Joey lets me know who is available. Thanks, Jason, and good job. Keep up the good work. If I haven't said it lately, I'm proud of you. When I first met you, I think you were only 6, and here you are, a prominent power in the world. I am that person because I had an amazing man teaching me, so thank you, Eric Kino, and thank God you stepped in to defend my cousin Jung. If not, Justin and I wouldn't even know you. You've been such a blessing to us both. I know you think taking out James that day in high school was a mistake on your part, but I think you did exactly what you were supposed to do, and I think you are not responsible for the things that happened. You've spoken many times that people must be held responsible for what they do. Hold him responsible. Eric nodded. I do, but I share in that. It was costly in what it caused my wife extensive pain and trauma. Still, it seems the good that's come from it is unmeasurable. And yet I still feel immense guilt when I think of Shelley's swollen and bruised face, or her rape, or her torture. Still, she's strong now because of all that, so I guess she was honed in the fire. Shelley had been standing in the hall with Eric and Cam listening to the conversation, and she reached over and squeezed Eric's hand. He glanced down at her and smiled. Then the door next to their room opened and little Angelina peeked out. Shelley went to her immediately. Good morning, sweet girl. Eric ended his call and smiled at Cam. Well then, so we're going to head downstairs to do a morning workout and then have breakfast. Cam nodded. Don't leave the house without me. Right now, while you're working out, I need to go have a talk with my wife, because Jeffy feels guilty that you went on that podcast only because she told you that she felt the need to answer the accusations. You did it for her, and now she feels like all of this is her fault. Eric nodded. If you can't get through to her, let me know, and I'll have a little talk with her. Cam nodded. Thank you, sir. New scene, December 19th, Thursday evening, Tanner home, Pine Forest, Georgia. The Tanner home was beautifully decorated for Christmas inside and out, yet in the dining room currently were balloons and streamers that were pink and purple, and a giant sign covered with spring flowers and the words, Happy 23rd Birthday, Lily and Daisy. The home was also filled with people. Of course, the entire Tanner family was there, plus significant others like Nolan Sawyer, Heather's fiance, Jericho Jones, and C.J. Blackman. And also there were the Stewarts, Chaz, Lisa, Charlie, Matthew, Erilyn, and babies Lachlan and little Johnny, and Melena Apple and Hannah Brown. Jody and John Apple weren't able to get away because the inn was in full Christmas swing. Currently, Gabe was standing in the large entryway between the kitchen, the den, the dining room, and the staircase, holding little Gentian and singing to her as he danced slowly to the song that was playing on the speaker, I Will Always Love You. Gabe glanced at his father when he saw him smile and go to his mother and take her hand and pull her to him in the foyer area and dance with her. It made Gabe so happy to see the romance still alive between his mother and father. He could picture them younger, looking into each other's eyes like they were right now, swaying back and forth. He hoped he'd have that same kind of moment with Taylor 20 years from now. Gabe looked around, suddenly realizing... Sorry. Got this cold. Gabe looked around... Try again. Gabe looked around, suddenly realizing that Lena was dancing with her brother. Matthew, CJ, was dancing with Violet. Chaz was dancing with Lisa, each of them holding a baby in their arms. Charlie convinced Hannah to dance with him. Young Erilyn Stewart held Iris's hands as they circled round and round. Nolan finally rose and pulled Heather to him. She had little Isaiah in her arms, but that didn't stop them. They began swaying to the music. Jericho grabbed his crutches, but Rose stopped him. You don't have to do this, Jericho. He smiled. I don't have to, but I want to. Just don't trip over my crutches. She giggled and put her hands up around his neck, but by the time they'd started to dance, or at least sway, the song ended, and everyone groaned. Everyone just stay right where you are, Keegan said. He went to the phone, connected to the speaker, and started a different song. Everyone smiled when they heard what it was. When You Say Nothing at All. Only one of the most romantic love songs of all times. When Gabe realized the only two people not dancing were the birthday girls, he headed over to Hannah and Charlie. Hannah, will you take the baby for a minute? And Charlie, will you come with me to ask my sisters to dance? The party's for them, and they're the only ones not dancing. Hannah smiled and held her arms out to take the infant. Gabe and Charlie headed over to the girls. Lily, Gabe said, may I have this dance? Lily smiled and took her brother's hand. You are such a sweetie, Gabe. Yep, he said with a grin and escorted her to the middle of the floor. Charlie smiled at Daisy. So, will you dance with me? I'd be happy to, Charlie, Daisy said sweetly. Keegan watched Gabe handle the situation perfectly. He was so proud of his son. Gabe stayed awake and aware. He stayed watchful. He was usually in the moment, serving whenever and wherever he could. Keegan sighed, thinking he was so blessed to have such a good kid for a son. The music ended, and Lizzie called out, Hey, everyone. It's time to open the gifts, and then we'll blow out the candles and have some cake. So let's gather around in the living room. Guys, if you could move some dining room chairs into the living room to make sure everyone has a place to sit. As usual, the birthday girls each sat in a chair place in front of the fireplace. The rest gathered on the sofas and chairs, and a few sat on the floor, including Charlie and Matt and Hannah. Gabe knelt down and smiled at Erilyn. He sighed. Whenever he looked into her eyes, Whenever he looked into her eyes, he was taken by her beauty. She looked just like her sister. She was gorgeous. She was only 7 years old, but it was obvious she was going to be a knockout. She had the same voluptuous red hair and large green eyes as her mother and sister. Erilyn, too, was tall for her age, like Lena, but Erilyn was sweet, very soft and sweet, whereas Lena was a fireball. Gabe had heard that Aunt Lisa, too, had been a lot to handle. So, Erilyn, Gabe said kindly as he chose a gift from the pile, you give Daisy this one from Aunt Jody, Uncle John, and Hannah. Erilyn nodded and handed the gift to Daisy. Thank you, Erilyn, Daisy said sweetly. Let's see, who is this from? It's from Aunt Jody, Uncle John, and Hannah. Oh, well, aren't you so smart, Daisy said. Well, Gabe told me, but he didn't have to. I can read. Oh, wait, Hannah said. I'm supposed to FaceTime with Miss Jody when you open our gift. They waited for Jody and John. Hey, everyone, they said. Hannah pointed the camera at Daisy. Hey, Uncle John, Aunt Jody, so I'm about to open your gift. Awesome, Jody said. I hope you like it. Daisy reached in and pulled a dark green sweatshirt out of the bag. It had a hand-embroidered emblem of a dog on the left breast, and the dog looked just like Georgia, and around the dog were 9 smaller little smiling puppy faces. She examined it closely. Oh, my goodness. I love this so much. And look at that handwork. It's amazing. It reminds me of the work Miss Teeley does. Good eye, Daisy. That's because I hired her to do it for you, Jody said. Oh, wow, I can't believe you went to all that trouble. Thank you so much, Aunt Jody and Uncle John. Well, there's more in the bag. Hannah picked it out. Daisy fished through the paper and pulled out a dog collar with daisies on it and a tag that read, Daisy belongs to me, with Daisy's phone number. Daisy held it up for everyone to see. Oh, Hannah, I just love it. Thank you so much. Thank you too, Uncle John and Aunt Jody. You're welcome. Hannah, if you don't mind, we'd like to watch Lily open our gift and then just watch a little longer, or as long as we can until a guest needs something. I don't mind, Hannah said. If your arm gets tired, I'll hold the phone, Charlie said quickly. She smiled at him and nodded. Gabe handed another bag to Erilyn and smiled. You know who. Erilyn handed the bag to Lily. It's from Uncle John, Aunt Jody, and Hannah. Thank you so much, Erilyn. She looked in the bag and pulled out a dark green apron with Lily's place embroidered on the front, with a picture of orange and yellow lilies sprouting up with from a thick patch of grass. It was a really nice apron with a front pocket and then another smaller pocket that held a tasting spoon and a little metal ring that held a small towel. Her eyes opened wide. Oh, wow, you guys, this is awesome. You don't even realize how awesome this is. Look, Daisy, this embroidery is very similar to the picture I showed you. She looked the apron over. It's really amazing, isn't it? Is this Mrs. Teeley, too? Yes, it is, Jody said. And Lily, there's more down in there. Again, Hannah picked it out. Lily fished through the paper and came out with a white coffee mug. It, too, had the picture of lilies coming out of a patch of grass and also had the words, the only thing on fire in our kitchen is the cook. Lily giggled. Oh, thank you, Hannah. I love it so much. How did you find a mug with a picture to match the ones on the apron? We had it custom made, Hannah answered. Well, I simply love it. Thank you so much, and thank you, Aunt Jody and Uncle John. You're very welcome. The gift-giving continued. They went back and forth between Daisy and Lily, gifts from the Stewarts, gifts from Lena and Jake, one gift from Rose and Jericho. Gabe lifted and presented to to Lily himself, since it was a large, heavy box. It was a set of 4 toxin-free non-stick pans. It wasn't the only set of pans she received. It became a joke that she now had enough pots and pans to open her own restaurant. If only, Lily said with a sigh. Maybe one day, Lizzie said softly. Keegan glanced down at his wife, taking note of her excellent acting skills. Daisy also received wonderful gifts, including her favorite perfume, a new state-of-the-art laptop from Violet and CJ, and a kit to make her own doghouse because it was known that she loved to work with her hands. Carpentry work, gardening work, painting walls. She loved it all. Heather and Nolan got each sister new saddles to keep at their stables so that they could come and ride whenever they wanted. Iris presented each sister with a bracelet she made from a kit she had. She was proud that Gabe had helped her with the color choices. Gabe presented Daisy with a new leather sling bag with an engraved daisy on it. He gave Lily a beautiful wooden wall hanging with the words, "The kitchen is the heart of the home. Nourish, strengthen, heal, love." It, too, had the little Lily logo on it. Lily gave Daisy a kit to build her own raised planter box, and Daisy gave Lily a multi QR code business social media sign. It was beautiful. A brushed nickel plaque on a gold base. It had gold squares where the QR codes will go, and above each square in gold the social media logo. Engraved in black was Lily's place in beautiful cursive, and again the Lily logo. Lily was grateful but confused, yet still thanked her sister profusely. And finally, there were only 3 gifts left 2 envelopes from their parents and 1 extra box for Lily. Gabe made everyone wait a minute while he started a video call with Taylor and her parents. Young Eric, Amari, and Brittany were also on the phone. "Hey, everyone," Bree chirped brightly. "Hey, Kinos," Lizzie answered. "Bree, I'm so excited about the news Gabe gave us. How are you feeling?" "I'm feeling totally blessed. I've had a little bit of morning sickness, but knowing that God has blessed me with another child, I don't care how sick it makes me." "Well, I do," Ricky put in, making everyone laugh. Bree giggled. "I bet your mom is tickled pink," Lizzie said. "Oh, she is. Grandbaby number 10. The whole family is really excited for us. Oh, and you all haven't met our newest kiddos. This is Amari, and this little one is Brittany. Wave at the camera, sweetie." Both Brittany and Amari smiled and waved. "It's so nice to meet you, Amari and Brittany," Keegan said softly. "Yes, it is," Lizzie said. "Maybe you can come visit us this next summer. There's lots of fun things to do here. Riding horses, bike trails, fishing, swimming, river rafting, lots of ball games. So much." "We'll try to make that happen," Ricky said. "Okay, let's get these last gifts," Keegan said. Erilyn handed the box to Lily with a smile. "It's from my mom." Lily frowned up at her Aunt Lisa, who was also her employer. "But you already gave me a gift." "This one is from me as your employer and also from Miss Maddie. It's very special to Chaz and I thought you should have it. Go ahead, open it." Lily tore away the wrapping paper and opened the top of a cardboard box and pulled out a shadow box for hanging on the wall, and inside the box was a rolling pin, and printed on the box behind the rolling pin were the words, "Maddie's sword." Lily teared up. "This is from the inn, right?" "Yes, sweetie," Lisa said. "Maddie would want you to have it." Lily blinked and tears ran over her cheeks. "I don't deserve this." "Why not?" Keegan asked his daughter. "What makes you undeserving?" She shook her head. I don't know, but it's special to you guys, right?" "Yes, it is," Chaz said. "And because you know that, you'll work hard to honor Miss Maddie." "So, is there a story behind this rolling pin?" CJ asked. Chaz chuckled as he bounced his son in his arms. "Oh, there is indeed. You see, a very long time ago when Miss Lisa Stewart, well, back then she was Miss Lisa Lewis, when she first came back to Pine Forest to find her grandmother, she'd been in a bit of a spat with her ex, whom she left back in California. She'd driven here in a red Corvette, a gift from her mother. We won't go into detail about that. However, Lisa's mother sent Lisa's ex to retrieve the car from Lisa, and the guy roughed her up a bit, but Lisa, being a feisty little thing, was able to get the keys from him, and he knocked her around, and he had her pinned to the ground when Miss Maddie came charging out the front door of the inn, this rolling pin held high in the air. She fully intended to beat the guy to death. At least that's what she says. The group chuckled. "You're talking about the little lady in the picture over the fireplace at the inn?" Jericho asked. "One and the same," Lisa answered, smiling at the memory. "Was she able to get in a lick?" CJ asked. Chaz shook his head. "Unfortunately, no. The ex grabbed the pin from her and threw it across the yard. He was able to get the keys, get back in the car, and take off right before I could get to them. After I took Lisa inside and doctored up her head that got cut from the tires, spewing gravel up in her face, we went out hunting for Miss Maddie's rolling pin." "And don't forget that you kissed her," Lena put in. Chaz smiled. "Yes, you're right. When I was doctoring up her head, her lips were right there. I couldn't resist. I kissed her. More than once. And we all knew where that led. To our marriage and your existence," he said pointedly at his eldest daughter. She smiled. "Well, thank you, Aunt Lisa. Thank you so much for this gift. I will cherish it always." Lisa smiled and nodded. "You're so welcome." "And now for our gift to Lily," Lizzie said. Gabe handed the envelope to his father, who presented it to Lily. Lily smiled and took the envelope. Inside was several papers, including a land lot survey paper and a deed to a piece of property. She blinked several times. I don't understand," she said. "Read the address on the property description." She's mumbled the address, ending with Main Street, Pine Forest, Georgia. She frowned. "Read the previous owner on the land title," Keegan instructed. Lily did, and her eyes opened wide. What? Knox Sawyer? Are you saying that you purchased the Knox Sawyer home on Main Street? There were no gasps of surprise from the group because they'd all known and they'd all looked forward to this moment. And that is the end of chapter 22. Ooh.